Before we begin, if you're enjoying this story, please leave a comment below telling me what you think will happen next. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another tale of family secrets, hidden truths, and unexpected twists. The gun wasn't supposed to be in my son's office. I stood frozen in the doorway of Marcus's penthouse study, my cleaning cloth still clutched in my trembling hand, staring at the gleaming black pistol that had slid out from beneath a stack of financial papers when I'd been dusting his mahogany desk. The weapon caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. My son, my brilliant, successful, millionaire son, who owned half the commercial real estate in Chicago, had a gun hidden in his desk. And, from the scratches on the grip and the way it had been carefully wrapped in an oilcloth, this wasn't some collector's item or an unused piece of home protection. This gun had been fired. Recently. "Mrs. Helena, you still here?" Clara's voice floated up from the first floor, and I jumped, my heart hammering against my ribs. My daughter-in-law. Beautiful, perfect Clara, with her designer clothes and her monthly allowance that she doled out to me like I was some kind of charity case. $5,000 deposited into my account on the first of every month, with a smile that never quite reached her amber eyes. I quickly pushed the gun back under the papers, arranged them exactly as they'd been, and grabbed my cleaning supplies. My hands were shaking so badly that the bottles rattled together. "Just finishing up in Marcus's study," I called down, forcing cheerfulness into my voice that I didn't feel. As I hurried down the curved marble staircase of their Lincoln Park mansion, my mind raced. 3 weeks ago, I'd been watching the news while folding laundry in my small apartment on the South Side, the apartment I'd raised Marcus in after his father died, working 3 jobs to put him through school. A prominent defense attorney named James Richardson had been found dead in his car, an apparent suicide. Single gunshot wound to the head. James Richardson. The name had meant nothing to me then, but 2 days ago, I'd been sorting Marcus's mail, another one of my duties as his mother-turned-housekeeper, and I'd seen a letter from Richardson's law firm. The envelope had been torn open, the letter missing, but I'd recognized the return address. Now, there was a gun in my son's desk. "There you are." Clara appeared at the bottom of the stairs, her honey blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Her yoga outfit probably worth more than my monthly rent. She smiled, but I saw the way her eyes flickered over my face, searching. "I was hoping to catch you before you left. Mother's Day is coming up this Sunday, and Marcus wanted me to ask you something." My stomach tightened. Mother's Day. The holiday that used to mean Marcus bringing me hand-picked dandelions when he was little, back when we had nothing but each other, and his bright, determined eyes that promised me, "Mama, I'm gonna make it big one day. I'm gonna take care of you." Oh, I descended the last few steps, clutching my cleaning caddy like a shield. Clara's smile widened, showing perfect, white teeth. "He wanted to know if you're happy with the arrangement we have, the $5,000 a month. He's been worried that it might not be enough, especially with inflation and all." The way she said it, the arrangement, made it sound like a business transaction, which, I supposed, it was. Ever since Marcus had married Clara 5 years ago, I'd gone from being his mother to being their employee. Oh, they never called it that. It was always framed as helping out, as letting me earn a little extra, as keeping me active in my retirement. But I cleaned their 7-bedroom house twice a week. I organized Clara's closet. I ran their errands. And in return, I got $5,000 a month in the slowly dawning realization that my son, my baby boy, who I'd sacrificed everything for, was ashamed of me. "It's very generous," I said carefully, watching Clara's face. "Marcus has always been good to me." Something flickered in Clara's expression. Triumph? Relief? It was gone before I could identify it. "Wonderful. I'll let him know you're satisfied." She glanced at her Apple Watch. "Oh, you should get going. Isn't Thursday your day at the food pantry?" She knew my schedule better than I did. Of course she did. Clara kept track of everything. I nodded and moved toward the door, but her voice stopped me. "Helena." I turned back. Clara was standing in a shaft of sunlight, looking like something out of a magazine spread, but her eyes were hard. "You know we consider you family, right? Family doesn't keep secrets from each other." My blood ran cold. Did she know I'd found the gun? Had there been cameras in Marcus's study? "Of course," I managed. "No secrets." Clara's smile returned, warm and false. "Good, because Marcus has worked so hard for everything he has. It would be terrible if anything threatened what he's built, don't you think?" It wasn't a question. It was a warning. I left the mansion with my mind spinning, barely remembering the drive back to my apartment in Marcus's old neighborhood, the neighborhood he'd escaped from with his law degree and his ruthless ambition and his convenient new wife, whose family had connections that opened every door in Chicago. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days, but it was mine. Or rather, it had been mine until Marcus insisted on paying the rent. Another part of the arrangement. I'd barely locked the door behind me when my phone buzzed. A text from my best friend, Lorraine. "Girl, turn on Channel 7, now!" I grabbed the remote with shaking hands and clicked on the local news. A reporter stood outside a gleaming office building downtown, her expression grave. The second suspicious death connected to the Richardson case. Sarah Chen, a paralegal who worked with defense attorney James Richardson before his death 3 weeks ago, was found dead in her apartment this morning. Police are calling it a possible overdose, but sources say Chen had been in contact with federal investigators before her death, claiming to have information about financial irregularities at Richardson's firm. The camera cut to a photo of Sarah Chen, a young Asian woman with kind eyes and a bright smile. My phone buzzed again. "Lorraine, you seeing this? That's Marcus's building." Richardson's firm was on the same floor as his office. I sank onto my worn couch, my mind racing. James Richardson dead. Sarah Chen dead. Both connected to Richardson's law firm. Both dead within weeks of each other. And Marcus had a gun hidden in his desk. No, I was being paranoid. Marcus was a successful real estate developer, not a criminal. He'd never even gotten a speeding ticket. The gun probably belonged to Clara. She was from one of those wealthy families that went hunting at their estate in Wisconsin. It probably meant nothing. But that letter from Richardson's firm, the way Clara had looked at me today, warning me about secrets, the monthly payments that felt less like generosity and more like hush money, though I didn't know what I was being paid to keep quiet about. My phone rang, making me jump. Marcus. "Hey, Mama." His voice was warm, the voice of the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. "Clara said she talked to you about Mother's Day." "She did." I kept my voice steady. "Good. Listen, I want to do something special for you this year. Really special. Why don't you come to the house on Sunday? Clara's planning a big brunch, and I want to give you your gift in person." There was something in his tone that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Too bright, too insistent. "Marcus, is everything okay?" A pause. Then, "Of course, Mama. Why wouldn't it be? I saw on the news about that paralegal. Sarah Chen. Didn't she work in your building?" Another pause, longer this time. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder, more careful. How do you know about Sarah Chen? It's on the news, baby. They're saying she worked with that lawyer who died, James Richardson. Mama. The warmth was completely gone now. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Don't talk about this with anyone. Not Lorraine, not the ladies at the food pantry. Nobody. Do you understand? Marcus, what's going on? I'm trying to protect you. His voice cracked, and for a moment, he sounded like the scared little boy he'd been the night his father died. Please, just trust me. Come to brunch on Sunday. We'll talk then. But until then, don't ask questions. Please. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there in my quiet apartment, holding my phone, and realized that I didn't know my son at all anymore. The boy I'd raised, the one who'd cried when we couldn't afford a field trip, who'd studied by flashlight under his covers because we'd sometimes lose electricity, who'd promised to make everything better, had disappeared somewhere along his climb to the top, and I was terrified of what he'd become. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Washington, this is Special Agent David Torres with the FBI. We need to talk about your son. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Lou Mitchell's restaurant on Jackson. Come alone. Your life may depend on it. I stared at the message, my heart pounding so hard, I thought it might burst from my chest. What had Marcus done? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling of my apartment, listening to the familiar sounds of the neighborhood. Sirens in the distance, Mrs. Patterson's TV through the thin walls, the rumble of the L train 2 blocks away, the sounds of home, the sounds of the life Marcus had been so desperate to escape. At 1:47 a.m., I got up and pulled out the shoebox from the top shelf of my closet. Inside were the remnants of Marcus's childhood, his report cards, all A's always, his acceptance letter to Northwestern University, photos of him at his law school graduation, beaming with pride, and beneath all of that, a newspaper clipping I'd saved from 15 years ago. Local teen witnesses, fatal shooting, testifies against gang member. I traced my finger over the grainy photo of 17-year-old Marcus, his face solemn, standing outside the courthouse. He'd seen his best friend, DeAndre, gunned down on their corner by a member of the Disciples over a dispute about territory. Marcus had been the only witness willing to testify. The gang member, a man named Julian Price, had been sentenced to 25 years. I'd been so proud of Marcus's courage, and so terrified that Julian's associates would come after him. But Marcus had been untouchable, protected by his youth and the media attention on the case. He'd used that tragedy as fuel, pouring himself into his studies, determined to get out of the neighborhood, to become someone who mattered. But I remembered what he'd said to me the night after DeAndre's funeral. Mama, in this world, you're either the person with the power or the person getting crushed by it. I'm never going to be powerless again. At the time, I'd thought he meant he'd become successful. Now, holding that old newspaper clipping, I wondered if he'd meant something darker. I replaced the box and tried to sleep, but my mind kept circling back to that gun in his desk, to James Richardson and Sarah Chen, to the FBI agent who wanted to meet me. When morning finally came, I was exhausted and terrified, but I'd made a decision. I would meet with Agent Torres. I would hear what he had to say, and then I would decide whether my son was the victim in this story or the villain. Lou Mitchell's was crowded with the lunch rush when I arrived at 2 p.m. The classic diner had been a Chicago institution since 1923, and the smell of coffee and frying bacon was so thick you could taste it. I stood in the entrance, scanning the red vinyl booths, looking for someone who looked like an FBI agent. Mrs. Washington, I turned to find a man in his early 40s, Latino, with tired eyes and a kind face. He wore jeans and a button-down shirt. No suit, no badge visible. He could have been anyone. Agent Torres? He nodded and gestured to a booth in the back, away from the windows. Thank you for coming. I know this must be frightening. We slid into the booth, and a waitress immediately appeared with coffee. Agent Torres waited until she'd left before speaking. Mrs. Washington, how much do you know about your son's business dealings? I wrapped my hands around the warm coffee mug. He develops commercial real estate, shopping centers, office buildings. He's very successful. He is, Torres agreed. In the past 5 years, your son's company has acquired over $200 million worth of property in the Chicago area. That's remarkable for someone who started with nothing. The way he said it made it sound like an accusation. Marcus worked hard, I said defensively. He earned everything he has. I don't doubt he worked hard. Torres pulled out a tablet and opened a file. But the question is, how did he earn it? Mrs. Washington, we've been investigating a money laundering operation that runs through several real estate development companies in Chicago. Drug money, mostly. Millions of dollars being cleaned through property purchases, construction projects, and shell companies. My stomach dropped. You think Marcus is involved in money laundering? I think Marcus is at the center of it. Torres turned the tablet toward me. It showed a complex web of names and companies, with Marcus's name highlighted in the middle. 3 years ago, your son's company was struggling. He was over-leveraged on several properties, facing bankruptcy. Then, suddenly, he got an influx of investment capital from a group of LLCs registered in Delaware. Within 6 months, he'd turned everything around. So, he found investors. That's not illegal. It's not. Unless those investors are fronts for the Chicago drug trade. Torres swiped to another screen, showing photos of men I didn't recognize. These are the real owners of those LLCs. Victor Santos, head of the Latin Disciples Drug Distribution Network. Michael Chen, who controls the heroin trade in Chinatown. And Julian Price. My blood turned to ice. Julian Price is in prison. He was released 8 months ago. Good behavior, overcrowding, and an excellent lawyer. Torres's eyes were gentle but relentless. James Richardson was that lawyer. And Richardson also handled the legal work for the LLCs that invested in Marcus's company. I couldn't breathe. Julian Price, the man who'd murdered DeAndre, the man Marcus had testified against, was his business partner. No, I whispered. Marcus would never. Mrs. Washington, I know this is hard, but I need you to understand what's happening here. Richardson was cooperating with us. He was going to testify about the money laundering operation. Then he turned up dead, with a single gunshot wound to the head, staged to look like suicide. The news said it was suicide. The news reports what we tell them. Torres leaned forward. 3 days before Richardson died, he called us in a panic. He said he'd told Marcus that he was cooperating, thought Marcus might help him. Instead, Marcus threatened him, told him that snitches end up like DeAndre. Oh God, no. Sarah Chen, Richardson's paralegal, witnessed that conversation. She came to us, terrified, saying she had copies of files that proved Marcus was involved. We were supposed to meet with her to get those files. Torres's jaw tightened. She died of a heroin overdose the night before our meeting. Sarah Chen had never used drugs a day in her life. The diner spun around me. I gripped the edge of the table, fighting nausea. You think my son killed them? I think your son ordered them killed, Torres said quietly. Mrs. Washington, these people, Santos, Chen, Price, they don't do their own dirty work. They have soldiers for that. But the orders come from the top. And right now, Marcus is at the top. Why are you telling me this? My voice broke. What do you want from me? Torres reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine. I want to save your son's life, and maybe his soul, if it's not too late. Because right now, Marcus is in too deep. These men he's partnered with, they're planning something big. We've intercepted communications suggesting a major drug shipment coming in next week. Over $50 million worth of fentanyl that will flood the streets of Chicago. I thought of DeAndre, bleeding out on the sidewalk. I thought of all the mothers in our neighborhood who'd lost children to drugs and violence. I thought of the boy Marcus had been, crying in my arms, swearing he'd never let anyone hurt innocent people the way Julian Price had hurt DeAndre. What do you need me to do? Torres pulled out a small device, no bigger than a button. This is a recording device. We need evidence. Marcus is too careful on the phone, too smart to put anything in writing. But Mother's Day is in 2 days. You're going to his house for brunch. If you can get him to talk about the business, about Richardson, about anything, you want me to wire myself and spy on my son. I want you to help us stop him before he gets himself killed or kills anyone else. Torres's eyes were pleading. Mrs. Washington, Julian Price didn't partner with Marcus out of forgiveness. He's using him. And when this deal goes down, when the drugs hit the streets and people start dying, Marcus will be the perfect fall guy. He's the legitimate businessman, the face of the operation. Price and the others will make sure all the evidence points to Marcus, and then they'll eliminate him. You don't know that. I do, because that's what happened to the last front man they used. His name was Thomas Webb. Sound familiar? It did. Vaguely. A developer who died in a car accident 2 years ago. That wasn't an accident, Torres said. Webb tried to get out. They made it look like he lost control of his car on the expressway. But we found evidence that his brake lines had been cut. I closed my eyes. My beautiful, brilliant boy. What had he done? If I help you, I said slowly, what happens to Marcus? If we can prove he's being coerced, if we can show that he's trying to stop this shipment or turn on his partners, we might be able to offer him protection. Witness protection, a new life. But Mrs. Washington, I'm not going to lie to you. Your son has blood on his hands. Even in the best-case scenario, he's going to prison. The only question is whether it's for 5 years or 50. Prison. My Marcus, locked away like Julian Price, had been. The irony was almost unbearable. But if the alternative was death or becoming the man who flooded Chicago's streets with poison, I'll do it, I whispered. Torres's shoulders sagged with relief. He showed me how to use the recording device, how to activate it without being obvious. It would be sewn into the hem of my dress, voice-activated, with a battery life of 6 hours. One more thing, he said as we stood to leave. Clara, Marcus's wife, we think she's involved too. Her family has connections to offshore banking. She might be helping move the money, so be careful around her. Don't trust her. I thought of Clara's warning the day before. Family doesn't keep secrets from each other. I won't, I promised. As I walked out of Lou Mitchell's into the gray Chicago afternoon, I felt like I was walking to my own execution. In 2 days, I would betray my son, and I would do it because I loved him. God help me, I would do it because somewhere inside that millionaire with blood on his hands was still the little boy who brought me dandelions on Mother's Day. Saturday passed in a blur of anxiety. I went through my normal routine. Laundry, grocery shopping, volunteering at the food pantry, but my mind was elsewhere. Every time my phone rang, I jumped. Every time I saw a black SUV, I wondered if it was them. Julian Price's people, Marcus's people. When had those become the same thing? Lorraine called me that evening, concerned because I'd been quiet at the pantry. "You feeling okay, Hel? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just tired," I lied. "Getting old, I guess." "Girl, please. You're 62, not 92. And you've got more energy than women half your age." Her voice softened. "Is it Marcus? You two have a fight?" How could I explain that I was about to destroy my son's life to save it? "No, we're fine. He's doing something nice for Mother's Day tomorrow." "That's good. That boy owes you everything." Lorraine paused. "Helena, can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest with me." My heart started racing. "What? Are you happy with the way things are with Marcus and Clara? Because sometimes I watch you, and you look so sad, like you've lost something." I pressed my hand to my mouth, fighting tears. Lorraine had known me since Marcus was in diapers. She'd been there through it all. The late-night cram sessions when I was trying to pass my GED. The celebrations when Marcus got into Northwestern. The awkward tension at his wedding when Clara's family made it clear they thought their daughter was marrying beneath her station. "I'm fine," I managed. "Really, I should go early day tomorrow." After I hung up, I sat in my darkened living room and let myself cry. Because Lorraine was right. I had lost something. I'd lost my son somewhere between the Southside apartment where we'd survived together and the Lincoln Park mansion where I was now a paid servant in everything but name. And tomorrow, I might lose him forever. Mother's Day dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect May morning that makes Chicago forgive you for its brutal winters. I dressed carefully in a blue floral dress, not too fancy, that would look suspicious, and let the FBI technician who came to my apartment at 7 a.m. sew the recording device into the hem. He was young and nervous, probably his first big case. "Just act natural," he said, his hands shaking slightly as he threaded the needle. "The device is voice-activated, so you don't have to do anything to turn it on. Just try to get your son talking about his business, about Richardson, about anything that might help us. What if Clara finds it? She won't. It's undetectable unless she's specifically looking for it, and she'd have no reason to search you." He tied off the thread and stepped back. "Agent Torres will be monitoring from a van a block away. If anything goes wrong, if you feel threatened at all, there's a panic button sewn into the collar of your dress. Just press it, and we'll be there in 90 seconds. 90 seconds. A lifetime, if something went wrong." By 10 a.m., I was standing outside Marcus and Clara's mansion, my finger hovering over the doorbell. The device felt heavy against my leg, even though it weighed almost nothing. The weight was in my conscience, in the knowledge that I was about to betray my own child. But I thought of Sarah Chen, of James Richardson, of all the people who would die if $50 million worth of fentanyl hit the streets. I thought of DeAndre, bleeding out while 17-year-old Marcus held him and screamed for help. I rang the doorbell. Clara answered, looking stunning in a cream-colored dress, her smile wide and welcoming. "Helena, happy Mother's Day." Come in. Come in." The house smelled like bacon and fresh pastries. Clara led me through the marble foyer to the dining room, where the table was set with fine china and crystal glasses. In the center was an elaborate arrangement of flowers, not dandelions, but exotic orchids that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Marcus is just finishing a call in his study," Clara said, pouring me a mimosa I didn't want. "He'll be down in a minute. In the meantime, I thought we could chat. She sat across from me, and I saw something calculating in her eyes that made my skin crawl. Helena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Has anyone contacted you recently? Anyone asking questions about Marcus or his business? My blood turned to ice. Did she know about Torres? Had they been watching me? No, I said, keeping my voice steady. Why would they? Clara studied me for a long moment. There are people who are jealous of Marcus's success. People who might try to cause trouble for him. If anyone ever approaches you, reporters, lawyers, law enforcement, I need you to tell us immediately. Do you understand? Of course. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Good, because Marcus has worked so hard for everything he has, and we protect what's ours. There was something chilling in the way she said it. Not Marcus's, ours, as if I were a possession, a tool to be used and controlled. Before I could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes, but he smiled when he saw me. Mama, happy Mother's Day. He came over and kissed my cheek, and for just a moment, he was my baby boy again. I wanted to pull him close and whisper, "Run. Get out while you still can. These people are going to destroy you." But I couldn't, because he'd already been destroyed. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Shall we eat? Clara said brightly. Brunch was elaborate. Quiche and fresh fruit and pastries from some bakery that probably required a reservation weeks in advance. We made small talk about the weather, about Clara's yoga class, about anything except what really mattered. Finally, over coffee, Marcus cleared his throat. Mama, I wanted to talk to you about something important. Clara and I have been discussing it, and we think it's time to make some changes. My heart stopped. Were they firing me? Or worse, did they know about Torres? Changes, I managed. Marcus glanced at Clara, who nodded encouragingly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. You've been getting $5,000 a month from us, which is fine for now. But Clara and I want you to be taken care of long term. So we've set up a trust fund in your name. $2 million. You'll never have to worry about money again. I stared at the envelope, unable to move. $2 million. The kind of money I'd never even dreamed of. The kind of money that could change my life. Or buy my silence. Marcus, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. He pushed the envelope across the table. You sacrificed everything for me, Mama. You worked 3 jobs to put me through school. You believed in me when no one else did. This is just a fraction of what I owe you. There were tears in his eyes, real tears, and I realized with a jolt that he meant it. Whatever else he'd become, whatever terrible things he'd done, some part of him was still the boy who loved his mother, which made what I had to do even worse. Marcus, I said carefully, knowing the device was recording every word. That's incredibly generous, but I have to ask, where is all this money coming from? Your business has grown so fast in the past few years. Sometimes I worry. Worry about what? Clara's voice was sharp. I met her eyes. That maybe Marcus is in over his head. That maybe the people he's working with aren't the kind of people who let you walk away when you want to. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marcus and Clara exchanged a look I couldn't read. What exactly are you saying, Mama? Marcus asked quietly. This was it, the moment where I either backed down or pushed forward into the truth. I thought of Agent Torres's words. I want to save your son's life, and maybe his soul, if it's not too late. I'm saying I know about Julian Price. The silence that followed was deafening. Clara's hand tightened on her mimosa glass. Marcus's face went very still. How do you know that name? He asked, his voice deadly calm. I remember, Marcus. I remember what he did to DeAndre. I remember you testifying against him, sending him to prison. And I remember you swearing you'd never let anyone hurt innocent people the way he hurt your best friend. My voice broke. So please, baby, tell me you're not in business with the man who murdered DeAndre. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Clara, could you give us a minute? Marcus, Clara started. Now. She left, but not before shooting me a look of pure venom. Marcus walked to the window, his back to me, his shoulders rigid. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, you want to know the truth, Mama? The truth is that I learned something the night DeAndre died. I learned that the world is divided into two types of people, predators and prey. DeAndre was prey. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he paid for it with his life. And I realized that if I wanted to survive, if I wanted to protect the people I loved, I had to become a predator. By working with the man who killed your best friend, he turned to face me, and the pain in his eyes was terrible to see. Julian came to me 8 months after he got out. He said he understood why I testified, said if he'd been in my position, he would have done the same thing. And then he made me an offer. Partner with him, help him clean his money through legitimate real estate deals, and he'd make me rich beyond my wildest dreams. If I refused, Marcus swallowed hard. He showed me photos, Mama. Photos of you at the food pantry. Photos of you getting on the L. Photos of you sleeping in your apartment. Ice water flooded my veins. He said that a lot could happen to an elderly woman living alone in that neighborhood. Accidents. Robberies gone wrong. He said it would be a shame if something happened to you because I was too proud to be practical. So you did it to protect me. I did it because I didn't have a choice. His voice rose, anguished. And once I was in, there was no getting out. You think I wanted this. You think I wanted to become the thing I hated. But every time I thought about walking away, I remembered those photos of you. I remembered DeAndre bleeding out on that corner because he couldn't protect himself. Tears streamed down my face. Oh, Marcus. Richardson was going to destroy everything. Marcus continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. He was going to go to the FBI, and Julian said if that happened, the first thing they'd do is tie up loose ends. And you, Mama, you'd be the loosest end of all, because you're my weakness. You're the one thing I'd do anything to protect. So you had Richardson killed. Marcus's silence was answer enough. And Sarah Chen. She had files, evidence. Julian's people took care of it. He looked at me with hollow eyes. I told myself they were collateral damage, that it was them or you, that I was being practical, like Julian said. But the truth is, Mama, I don't recognize myself anymore. I look in the mirror and I see a monster. I stood and went to him, taking his face in my hands the way I had when he was little and needed comfort. Then help me stop this. Help me save you. It's too late for that. It's not. Marcus, listen to me. There's a shipment coming, isn't there? Drugs, fentanyl, $50 million worth that will kill people. People like DeAndre. People like the kids in our old neighborhood. His eyes widened. How do you know about that? Because the FBI came to me. They told me everything. And they said, if you help them stop the shipment, if you testify against Julian and the others, they might be able to protect you. Witness protection. A new life. Marcus pulled away from me, backing toward the door. You're working with them. You're wearing a wire. Marcus, please. Clara! His shout echoed through the house. Clara, get in here. She appeared in seconds, as if she'd been listening the whole time. Probably had been. Marcus pointed at me, his hand shaking. She's wired. The FBI got to her." Clara's face went white with fury. Then she pulled a small pistol from her purse. Where had that come from? And pointed it at me. "You stupid, stupid woman," she hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I pressed the panic button in my collar, praying Torres and his team were close enough. "I'm saving my son's soul," I said. Clara laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "His soul. Let me tell you about your precious son, Helena. He didn't kill Richardson to protect you. He killed him because Richardson had evidence that Marcus had been skimming money from Julian's operation. Millions of dollars, hidden in offshore accounts. Marcus wasn't a victim. He was a thief, stealing from his partners. And when Richardson threatened to expose him, Marcus had him killed to cover his tracks. I looked at Marcus, hoping to see denial. Instead, I saw guilt. "Marcus?" My voice broke. "Tell me that's not true." He wouldn't meet my eyes. Clara continued, her voice cold and clinical. "The only reason Julian hasn't killed Marcus yet is because he still needs him for this final shipment. After that, Marcus was going to disappear anyway, probably in a tragic accident, just like Thomas Webb. I was supposed to inherit everything. The business, the accounts, all of it. And you were going to get your little trust fund and live out your days in ignorant bliss. But you couldn't just take the money and keep your mouth shut," Clara said, moving closer to me, the gun steady in her hand. "You had to play hero. Well, congratulations, Helena. You just got your son killed." The crash of breaking glass interrupted her. The front door burst open, and suddenly the house was full of people. FBI agents in tactical gear, weapons drawn, shouting commands. "Drop the weapon! FBI!" Clara spun toward them, and for a moment, I thought she might actually shoot. But then Marcus lunged forward and grabbed her arm, forcing the gun down. "It's over, Clara," he said quietly. "It's finally over." They took Clara first, cuffing her as she screamed obscenities at all of us. Then, Agent Torres approached Marcus, handcuffs at the ready. "Marcus Washington, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, and racketeering. You have the right to remain silent." "I'll cooperate," Marcus interrupted. "I'll tell you everything. About Julian, about the shipment, about all of it. But I have one condition." Torres raised an eyebrow. "You're not really in a position to make demands. My mother gets full immunity for anything and everything. She's not charged, not questioned, nothing. She walks away clean." "Marcus, no," I started. "That's my condition," he repeated, looking at Torres. "Do we have a deal?" Torres glanced at me, then back at Marcus. "I'll see what I can do. Not good enough. I need a guarantee right now, or I don't say another word without my lawyer. And you can bet Julian Price has better lawyers than you've got evidence." There was a long, tense silence. Finally, Torres nodded. "Fine. Your mother is clear. But you're going to tell us everything. And I mean everything. Deal." Marcus finally looked at me, and the tears in his eyes broke what was left of my heart. "I'm sorry, Mama, for all of it. You deserved better than me. You deserved better than this," I whispered as Torres cuffed him. "I failed you. I should have—" "Don't." Marcus's voice was fierce. "Don't you dare blame yourself. You gave me everything. I'm the one who threw it away. But at least I can give you one last thing. Your freedom. Live your life, Mama. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you anyway." They led him out, and I collapsed onto Clara's expensive couch, sobbing as if my heart would break. Because it had. My son, my brilliant, beautiful boy, was gone, and in his place was a man I didn't recognize, a man who'd made terrible choices for complicated reasons, who'd tried to protect me by becoming the very thing I'd raised him to stand against. Agent Torres sat down beside me, his expression gentle. "Mrs. Washington, I'm sorry. I know this isn't how you wanted this to end. How is it going to end?" I asked through my tears. "What's going to happen to him? If he cooperates fully, if he helps us take down Julian Price and the others, we might be able to get him a reduced sentence. 10 years, maybe 15, instead of life. He'll be eligible for parole eventually. 10 years. Marcus would be 45 when he got out. Still young enough to have a life, maybe, if there was anything left of him to save. And Julian Price? With Marcus's testimony and the evidence we'll gather from the shipment, we'll have enough to put Price away forever. Him and everyone else in the organization." Torres stood. "Your son did a terrible thing, Mrs. Washington. Several terrible things. But in the end, he made the right choice. That has to count for something. Did it? I didn't know. All I knew was that my baby boy was going to prison, and I was free, and the irony was almost more than I could bear." The news broke the next day. Millionaire developer arrested in massive money laundering scheme. Marcus's face was all over the local stations, looking exhausted and defeated in his mugshot. The media circus was immediate and brutal. Reporters camped outside my apartment. My phone rang constantly. The ladies at the food pantry didn't know what to say to me. I stayed inside for 3 days, watching the story unfold on television. They found the fentanyl shipment exactly where Marcus said it would be, hidden in a furniture import container at a warehouse on the south side. $50 million worth of poison, enough to kill thousands. Julian Price was arrested, trying to flee to Mexico. Clara's family connections couldn't save her from federal charges, and through it all, Marcus cooperated. He gave them everything: bank accounts, meeting locations, names of corrupt officials who'd been on the take. He didn't try to minimize his role or shift blame. Agent Torres told me later that Marcus's testimony was the most comprehensive and damning evidence they'd ever gotten from a cooperating witness. "Your son may have lost his way," Torres said, "but he found it again at the end. That matters." On the 4th day, Lorraine showed up at my door with groceries and her own special brand of tough love. "Girl, you can't hide forever. Come on, we're going to the pantry. Those kids need us." "Lorraine, I can't face people. They all know what Marcus did." "So what? You didn't do anything wrong. You're not responsible for your son's choices, Helena. You gave him every opportunity, every bit of love and support a mother could give. What he did with that is on him, not you. I should have seen it. I should have known." "Known what? That your successful son was secretly a criminal? How were you supposed to know that? You're not a mind reader." She grabbed my hand, her grip fierce. "Listen to me. You are a good woman who raised a complicated man who made terrible choices. But you also raised a man who, when it mattered most, chose to do the right thing, even though it cost him everything. That part, that good part, that came from you." I started to cry, and Lorraine pulled me into a hug. "Come on now, we've got work to do. Those families aren't going to feed themselves." So I went back to the food pantry. I held my head high as people whispered. I smiled at the children who didn't care about scandals, who just wanted someone to help them pick out cereal. I did the work that had always given my life meaning, the work of caring for my community. And slowly, day by day, I began to heal. 6 months later, I visited Marcus in federal prison. He'd pleaded guilty to avoid a trial, accepting a 15-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 10. He looked thinner, older, but somehow more at peace than I'd seen him in years. "Hey, Mama," he said, through the glass partition, picking up the phone. "You didn't have to come all this way." "Of course I did. You're my son. We talked about small things. The food, terrible. His cellmate, okay. The classes he was taking, business ethics, and yes, he appreciated the irony." Then, as visiting hours were winding down, Marcus said, "I've been doing a lot of thinking in here. About Dad, about DeAndre, about all the choices I made. And I think I spent so long trying to escape where I came from that I lost sight of who I was. Dad died because he couldn't afford better health care. DeAndre died because our neighborhood was forgotten by everyone who mattered. And instead of trying to change that, I just wanted to get out, to become rich enough that none of it could touch me. You were young. You were scared. I was a coward." He pressed his hand against the glass. "But I'm going to do better, Mama. When I get out of here, I'm going to use what I learned, the legitimate parts, to actually help people, to invest in our neighborhood, to create opportunities for kids like I was, to make Dad and DeAndre proud." I pressed my hand against the glass opposite his, tears streaming down my face. "They already were proud, baby, and so am I. Even after everything I did, you're my son. I'll always be proud of you, and I'll always love you, no matter what." As I drove home from the prison that evening, I thought about the question Marcus had asked me on Mother's Day, the question that had started everything. "Mom, do you like the $5,000 Clara gives you?" I'd hated it, I realized. Not the money itself, but what it represented, the distance between us, the transactional nature of our relationship, the way I'd been reduced from mother to employee. But that was over now. The mansion was gone, seized by the government. The money was gone, returned to victims of Marcus's crimes. Clara's family wanted nothing to do with me. I was back in my small apartment, living on Social Security and my meager savings. And I was happier than I'd been in years, because I had my son back, not the millionaire, not the criminal, but Marcus, the real Marcus, who wrote me letters from prison about the books he was reading and the programs he was enrolled in, who called me every Sunday to check on me, who was slowly, painfully, rebuilding himself into someone who could live with his reflection. That was worth more than any trust fund. 3 years later, I was at the food pantry when my phone rang, with a call from an unknown number. Normally, I didn't answer those, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Washington, this is Director Chen from the FBI." My heart skipped. "Is Marcus okay?" "He's fine. Better than fine, actually. I'm calling because your son's cooperation led to the successful prosecution of not just Julian Price's organization, but 3 other major drug operations in Chicago. Because of his testimony and ongoing cooperation, the parole board has agreed to an early review of his case." What does that mean? "It means, Mrs. Washington, that your son could be coming home in 6 months instead of 7 years. We're recommending his release based on extraordinary cooperation and exemplary behavior during incarceration." I had to sit down. 6 months. "Yes, ma'am. He wanted us to call you first. Said you deserved to be the first to know." Director Chen paused. "Mrs. Washington, what your son did was terrible, but what he's done since, the lives he's saved by helping us shut down these operations, that matters too. He's not the same man we arrested 3 years ago." After I hung up, I just sat there in the pantry storeroom, crying happy tears for the first time in years. Lorraine found me like that and didn't need to ask what happened. She just held me while I sobbed. "He's coming home," I kept saying. "My baby's coming home. 6 months later, on a bright October morning, I waited outside the prison gates. When Marcus walked out, thinner, with some gray in his hair, but with clear eyes and a real smile. He was carrying just one bag and wearing clothes I'd sent him. He saw me and stopped, as if he couldn't believe I was really there. Then he ran to me, and I held my son the way I had when he was little and needed his mother to make the world right. "I'm so sorry, Mama," he whispered, "for everything. I know, baby. I know. But that's behind us now. What matters is what you do next." What he did next surprised everyone. Marcus got a job at a community development organization, helping formerly incarcerated people find housing and employment. The pay was terrible compared to what he'd made before, but he said it was the best work he'd ever done. He moved into a small apartment 3 blocks from mine. On Sundays, we had dinner together. Nothing fancy, just the two of us, and sometimes Lorraine and whoever from the neighborhood wanted to stop by. It was loud and chaotic and perfect. And on Mother's Day, Marcus showed up at my door with a fistful of dandelions he'd picked from the empty lot on the corner. "They're not much," he said, suddenly shy, "but I remember you always liked them." I took the dandelions and pulled my son into a hug, breathing in the familiar scent of him, grateful beyond words that we'd survived everything that had tried to tear us apart. "They're perfect," I said. "You're perfect, and I love you. I love you too, Mama. And I promise, no more secrets, no more lies, just me and you, the way it used to be. The way it always should have been," I corrected. We spent that Mother's Day in my small kitchen, making the same meal I used to make when Marcus was little and money was tight: fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread. It wasn't fancy. There were no crystal glasses or elaborate flower arrangements, but it was real. It was honest. It was us. And as we sat across from each other at my scarred kitchen table, laughing about something silly, I realized that we'd lost everything and gained what mattered most: each other. Sometimes the greatest gifts don't come in envelopes with trust fund documents. Sometimes they come in the form of second chances, in dandelions, in Sunday dinners, in small kitchens, with the people you love. That Mother's Day, my son didn't ask if I liked the $5,000 Clara used to give me. He didn't have to, because we both knew that no amount of money could ever replace what we had now. The truth, hard-won and painful, but ours. And in the end, that was worth everything. Thank you so much for reading this story. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Were you surprised by the twists? What did you think of Marcus's journey? And most importantly, what would you have done in Helena's position? Drop a comment and let me know. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of family, redemption, and the complicated bonds that hold us together, even when everything else falls apart. See you in the next story.